We're looking at the final two challenges on the variable type lesson. The first asks us, what is the type of x at the end of this code snippet? Let's go ahead and trace the code or walk through it step by step. We start off with y being the integer 3, then x is 2 raised to the third, so that's going to be 8. I have an integer operating on an integer, so I'm going to get an integer in return. So I'll have the integer 8 is equal to x. Now we're saying 8 modulo 3, again, integer and integer. We're not doing regular division. So 8 mod 3 is equal to 2. Right now, x is equal to an integer 2. Now, y is equal to 3.25. And it turns out that it doesn't even matter what x used to be, because we're going to reassign it to the value just 4 times y. That's an integer, and y is currently 3.25. That's a float. We're going to go to the more complex of the two data types, the float. The integer will be parsed into a float, and then the two floats will be multiplied together, resulting in another float. So it looks like I can choose float here for my answer and see that that is correct. Now, for the third challenge, it's saying which pattern is better for checking if x is of the int type. We can say type x double equals int, right? This is a comparison operator, double equals sign. I'm going to say, so far, this looks good to me. This makes sense with what I was taught in the lesson. Nothing wrong there. Is integer, this was not a part of the lesson. So although the name seems like it makes a lot of sense, and maybe one person could define a function that works like this, is integer, returns a Boolean. I don't think that it is a part of base Python, so I can think maybe that one's not a candidate for the correct way to check a type. The third option here is instance, where the first parameter is x, the variable we're talking about. The second is the type that we're trying to compare it to, and we're saying x is an integer. It will return true if it is an integer, false otherwise. And in this case, this makes sense syntactically. I know this function exists. This seems like a good option. And then my last option is both the first and the third, right? And I do think that both of those can be appropriate. So I'm going to choose that as my solution. It is important to be careful here that a Boolean and an integer, right? Booleans are like 0 and 1 and can be integer. So, right, is instance will return true, right? If you, let's actually go into Replit and let's just explore this a little bit. Let's print type of true, right? It's going to tell me that's a Boolean. And then print type of 1, that's going to tell me an integer. But watch this. If I use the is instance for my object is going to be just true. And we're going to check if that's an integer, see what it has to say. Right? It says that my Boolean is an integer, right? And that is because true is represented by the integer 1. So while is instance is often the preferred method for type checking in Python, you have to be really careful when you're dealing with Booleans and integers because they're sort of interchangeable, especially going from Boolean to integer. This will always come out as true, right? I think if I put in a 1 here and then I put in a bool here, let's see what this has to say. It will not go in this direction, right? So it looks like we just have to be careful that sometimes using is instance, a Boolean can also be interpreted as an integer. That's it for this challenge. We will see you on the next lesson, which talks about mutability.